Hey everyone, we're starting the stream a little bit early. Today's stream is going to be a tiny bit different from what we've been used to last week, which was the opening week of the Mercury Hackathon. It'll be just me. Jacob is out for the day, and he'll join us when he's available next. But for now, it's just going to be me and the chat. So I encourage you guys to participate in the chat. Let me know who's online. Say hi. I'm gonna start this myself. Hey. All right. So we're gonna wait for the official start of the stream, which is in about a minute. But for now, I want to see who's in attendance, who's joining, any familiar faces. Always happy to see that. Getting ready to start in about a minute. Hey, Melvin. How are you? Where are you from, Melvin? Hey, Justin. We're getting ready to start in 30 seconds. Hope you guys can hear me all right. Video's doing good. Hey, Brainchild, how are you? I'm going to be monitoring the YouTube chat and the Flow Developer Hours Slack channel on the Mercury Hackathon Slack for you guys to ask any questions if you're interested. Oh, Melvin, you're from India. That's awesome. Which part? All right. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Morgan, and this is the Decentology hosted Flow Developer Hours for the Mercury Hackathon 2021. We'll be going through an existing build today to explore what a Flow project could look like in finality. So we won't be building a lot from scratch today, but we will be playing around with an existing system and a system that you can open up in your browser and test it out yourself. So I feel like this is a good way to start week 2 because I assume, hey BZ, how are you? So I assume a lot of you have already settled on what you're going to build, or maybe some inkling of an idea where you're going to build. And for that, we need to start working on the tools. And a good way to assemble your tools and a good way to set up your environment is by looking at what other people did to build their apps. So without further ado, with you guys ready, I'm going to start my screencast. And we start with a repository that's in all of your resources links. You guys can find that link in the Mercury Hackathon website. I'm going to share the link directly into the YouTube chat and on Slack. So what is this repository? Well, this repository is a collection of content worth roughly 3 weeks of length, and the team at Decentology hosted this as a boot camp a month ago. And we built various kinds of apps, and specifically for today, we're interested in week 1. And I'm going to go through a specific app called Artist. To begin with, we're going to do a brief demo of what Artist does. And the link to that app is artist.flowdeveloper.com. BZ should be familiar with this project. Hey Marab, how are you? So we're going to do an exploratory session on what this app is, how it is architected, what are the connecting points with Flow, and maybe give you guys some ideas on how to build your own systems. So briefly, this is a Flow app that requires authentication to start viewing things, and the authentication method is FCL using a Blockto wallet. So this green button down at the bottom, we're going to click that, and we'll see a providers list. We're just going to pick Blockto from here. And since this is running on testnet, you guys are fully capable of creating your own accounts and joining this service as I go along. Thanks, BZ, for that. Yeah, Flow Artist is a pretty good benchmark project. So I'm going to log in using my credentials. Hopefully those still exist. All right, we got a passcode. One moment. So this is an account already existed, and this is kind of like two-factor authentication that Blockto uses. And I'm just going to enter that in here. All right. So it found our account associated with that specific email. It has an address, and we can confirm that we want to log in. Hey, right there. How are you? So here we find the home page for a logged in account, specifically this this user right here. I'll be able to share this link. So this is my personal account on artist.flowdeveloper.com. And what do we have here? Well, we have some account information. So we query the account address, and we get the flow balance, which is the testnet flow balance. Hey, Aaron, how are you? And we have a collection of NFTs. That's about it. We have a log out button down there if we want to drop our authentication, and that's it. That's it for the home page. So this is your collection plus some flow chain data. Inside of Draw, the tab, you'll find a 5x5 grid you can click on and draw something. For example, this little thing. And this 5x5 canvas is represented by a string of pixels. One stands for a pixel that's on, and a 0 a pixel that's off. So kind of like if you see a darker color, then the pixel's on. If it's a lighter color, then the pixel's off. If we click on print, this will go ahead and submit a transaction. And since we're using Blockto for our wallet, it's going to ask us. So this is where the rubber meets the road when dealing with blockchain. We get a script that tells us exactly what's going to happen. So there's some arguments in here. There is a script, a transaction, and it does some things in here. Creates a picture, adds it to our collection, and we can approve it. So this will directly have access to things that we outline in this prepare block. So this is transparent, and users can see what happens and what goes on when we transact. I click approve because this is not gonna be costing me anything, and it'll just create this NFT in my collection here, if successful. The success hinges on whether this particular picture has been printed before or not. So sweet. This picture was not printed before, and it was added to our collection. And we can go ahead and click that, and we'll see, boom, we have added a new picture to our collection. Now, here's a challenge for you guys. Everyone can go to artist.flowdeveloper.com. The link is in both in the chat and on Slack. And go and create an account, and using the draw panel right here, print some kind of NFT and share that link in the chat. We'll figure out something for rewards, but this is just for bragging rights right now. So anyone that can do that, you'll have a great example for creating something on the blockchain and sharing it with others, because that's the whole point, right? We want to share our builds and products with other people. Sweet. Now, building an NFT is one thing. Drawing a picture is one thing. But being able to trade it, well, that's a whole nother matter, and that adds a layer of fun that NFTs are famous for. So we have a trade tab right here, and this is all living on the blockchain. These are listings for existing pictures, and we can look at the seller. For example, the seller just minted one, and he made a listing of it. So we can buy it for 0.5 flow right here. That seems like a pretty decent price for a lovely smiley face right here. And we have 13.51, so plenty to purchase this. So we click on buy, and we get that pop-up again, that modal, where we can look at the transaction and see what it does. Hopefully we understand it. And this is a key point. So the account is going to borrow from the fungible token vault, okay, and it's going to withdraw the listing price amount, and the listing price is 0.5. So we're good with that. We're going to approve that transaction. Hopefully it goes through, and I can add this to my collection. Again, this is all on testnet, so whatever happens here is free, so you don't have to worry about spending your hard-earned cash to explore this thing. All right, so the transaction did go through. The listing is gone. So let's just see if it's in my collection. Yep, it's in my collection. So this completes one cycle. So I was able to buy. All right, now I want to list it for sale again. It was 0.5 before. Well, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself. Why not sell it for 1.5? A little 300% markup. Should be good, right? What do you guys think? 300% is decent? This is where we see the arguments. We're posting this picture for sale. This is the pixels, and the price is 1.5 flow. All right, so we approve this transaction. Hopefully it goes through, and once it does, it'll be removed from my collection and be sent to the listings. And here we are. We're back in the listings in the trade tab. Hi, Hater. How are you? Some people are joining us on Slack. Some on in the YouTube chat. All right, so I just went through the cycle of buying a picture, putting it up for sale, and you could imagine this is something that you guys want to do with what technologies that you have. Flow and Filecoin, you can imagine a bunch of NFT type products, and this could be a platform that you guys build. So let me know if you want to see how this works, how this is all built. And I'm looking for feedback in the chat. Hopefully you can get back to me on that. And then if there's enough interest, we'll go and dig deeper and explore this product from behind the scenes. Let me know what you think. Are you guys interested or what? Still waiting for a reply. I'm just, it's important that you guys pay attention. Who's going to be the first? Do we have good sound or what? All right. Oh, you guys are working on your BC. Please go ahead and share a link to your collection. I wanna have it on stream. This is the way. Hi, Vlad. How are you? I didn't catch your question. BZ, the question is, we're going to look at the source code. I'm just gauging your guys' interest. I like Flow Developer Hour. Well, thank you, Sanosha. Hope I didn't pronounce and butcher your name incorrectly. So what I want you guys to do is share your collection links. So when you click on this bottom left corner right here, you'll be taken to this link. So for example, this is the link for my collection, and I'm waiting for you guys to share at least one, show me some love. And I'll have it open for the stream, and then we'll move on to the source code. Don't be shy. You'll find the link at the bottom left. So if you click on your account ID in the URL bar, you'll find the public account link. So you guys can open this as incognito and view what's inside of that collection. You don't need to authenticate for that. All right. So who's with me? Really? What's your account address? I can look it up. All right, while we wait for BZ. Oh, sweet. So just give us that link and we'll move forward. It'll be good. It's interesting. I want to see. It's never like there's nothing like a live demo to share a product. Is this in Braille? No, this is not in Braille. This is just a 5x5 grid that you can draw anything on. Whatever this alien figure is. This is just something. It is there. Something for you guys to be creative with. Because if it's like a big canvas, nope. Strange. Perhaps this is YouTube security. Oh, Slackton. All right, so while we wait for BZ to share a link, maybe this is YouTube preventing links from being shared. I'm gonna clone this repository and you can follow along with me. And we're just gonna do git clone and bump it up a little bit, I guess. Sweet, we have our link. Thanks BZ for coming through. What's in your collection? Here we go. This looks like a skull, right? It's got to be a skull. Or could be an ape. I don't know. What is it, BZ? Looks good. Yeah, I think we figured it out. YouTube does not allow links. But this is good. I like it. Good work, BZ. Thanks for taking part. All right, everyone. So what we have is we have this repository that is rendering, taking care of all the business logic for both the front end and the back end of artist.flowdeveloper.com. And we're just going to authenticate again. Boom. And we're going to see how it is built, how it is structured, and explore the ways that you can you can copy and deploy this to your own projects. Let's copy this and clone it. Yeah, thanks for that. All right, so let's go fast forward one, and week one is what we're interested in. and we're going to do day 5. All right, we go into artist and do an npm I. Install all the packages that are required. This is a pretty light repository. You don't need not a lot of dependencies out there. Okay. So now that we have those modules there, let's take a look at what configuration is required to be able to run this. So let's see. Artist. Okay. We need a flow init to have our settings for everything. So we have and npm run start. Let's see if that works. We'll have some process running. Let's close that. Okay. So we did load something. Let's see if we can authenticate. We can confirm. All right, so I think there might be something missing in the implementation, because this is not the final assignment, well, not the final state of the assignment, but we'll go ahead and open up VS Code and see what's behind the scenes of artist.flowdeveloper.com. Let's reposition this. And let's bump it up so that you guys can read it easily. Okay. So now, as far as the structure goes, we have an app.jsx file. And what it does is it sets up, your basic React structure for a page with React Router, rendering each individual tab. So what we have, I'll add a new desktop for this. So what we have right here is we have home, we have draw, and we have trade, and this is corresponding to home, draw, trade, and then the authenticate route. Every single route depends on you being authenticated, and there's some logic right here to facilitate that. We're just going to hide that and simplify things. Now, how do I integrate flow? What, where's the hook? Where's the interpretation or integration there? Let's go back. So I chose to create a context for flow. So let's see what's inside of flow context. And let's have app.jsx open. So flow.jsx is a React context. If you guys are not familiar with React, this is just a way to share application state with parts of your app that might not have direct access to this object or these functions. So this is sort of a nice way to collect those properties and functions together into one object, and then share that with your components. For those that do know React, this is just a plain old context. All right. So we import FCL as the library that we're going to use for connecting with wallets. It's called FCL, stands for Flow Client Library. And let's see. We have some functions right here. And I'm going to minimize all of them. So what this context is doing is it's sharing the state and whether it's ready or not with whoever's listening in. And in this case, let's open up a page for drawing. That's an interesting page. And in here, we import the flow context. To be able to access it, we just call the use context hook. And now flow has access to things like flow dot state. Okay. So this is pretty much how what we have in here maps over to any kind of use case where we're using flow context. And inside of here, we have some callbacks. I'm going to minimize those. And let's find a button that's doing the printing. Okay, so we have this print button right here. In the app, let's create a collection first. You need a collection to be able to print. So we're going to approve this transaction for creating a collection, and we'll have our setup. I guess I'll go ahead and use the production version of this. Sorry for the hiccups. Blockchain development, y'all. All right, so this print button right here corresponds to our print button in the source code. And on click, we hit this on print function. All right, so this is just sort of a mental model for how to get from a React app all the way down to the Flow blockchain. So first step is an on-click listener that gets us to this point. So right here, we just do some defensive programming to check if the state is loading. And if the state isn't loading, then we can proceed with issuing this print picture call. All right, so the state.picture is just a collection of pixels, and that's encoded in a format that's sort of something we've outlined before. So ones and zeros, one is for a non-pixel, zero is for an off pixel. And this string we sent over to this print picture function of our flow context, which is right here. All right, so we clicked the button, that button got us to float that print picture, and we're sending it a string of pixels. All right, so let's look at print picture. It is defined in the flow.jsx file, line 200 in fact, and in here we're using a callback. This is a React hook, but that's not the important part here. The important part is here. So we receive a picture encoded as a set of pixels, and then we call this FCL method, fcl.send. All right, and what's in there? Well, if you remember from developer hours from last week, when you're sending a transaction, you have to provide certain values. Specifically, you have to provide it with a transaction script. Then you have to provide it with an account that's executing this transaction, that's signing it, and then some other values like the gas limit, although Flow does not collect transaction fees at the moment, so this is sort of an arbitrary max limit for what the gas fees could be. These parts relate to signing a transaction. In Flow, every transaction has a payer, so the account that agrees to pay the transaction fees. It also has a proposer. So accounts, they have keys associated with them. Remember the private public key pairing that we had last week. And a key, each key that an account has. So here's a diagram. So Flow has an account as a concept, for example. Each account has keys, and each key has a sequence number. All right. So what does that mean? Well, when you sign a transaction, you authorize it. We want to make sure that by no feat of clever social engineering would you be able to re-sign that same transaction. And the Flow does that by using a sequence number associated with every key that you use to sign transactions. So for example, you had a public key that's 0x123, and that public key had a sequence number that's 0. All right, I send this transaction, that gets incremented to 1 once the transaction is completed. So this same code again looks at the sequence number of a specific key that belongs to the specific account that's sending this transaction. I wonder if you guys got that part. Let me know in the comments if it's all clear. If not, we can touch on this and go a little more in depth. All right, well, seems like everyone's all right. In that case, let's proceed with the structure of what goes into send. So we have an array, and in that array we build a transaction. Like I said, it has parts. I've described 4 of those parts. This is where the script of the transaction, so this is your cadence code for the transaction. And then we have arguments. Remember, transactions, just like scripts, they can have arguments. And this is where we feed it a width and a height. So it's a 5x5 pixel grid. So we'll have 5 pixels to the left and 5 pixels to the bottom. And then a collection of 25 pixels as encoded as zeros or ones inside of a string. This fcl.arg function takes in a raw value, and we specify what kind of type using the flow types as imported from the onFlow types package. All right, and everything combined right here creates a transaction that we can go ahead and send. All right, after we send it, we almost immediately get a transaction ID if this transaction was accepted into the blockchain. If it was, we go ahead and wait until it is sealed. All right, and sealed just means this is forever a part of the Flow blockchain. So what's inside of the source code for what's inside of the cadence code for this transaction? Well, we import the contract, and the contract is called local artist. from a specific account address. And, this looks exactly like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever account is hosting this contract. And we experienced how to deploy contracts previously. And inside of the transaction body, we see that we've taken 3 arguments, a width, a height, both are integer types, and then a pixels string. We do have some temporary storage while the transaction is executing so that we can place things like resources conveniently. So this picture right here holds this new picture that we're drawing. If you remember from our first developer hours, we had structures and resources as 2 composite types available in Cadence, which is the programming language for Flow. All right. And then we have a collection reference. So references are kind of like a pointer to something that's inside of account storage. And in this case, this is the collection of pictures like what we have right here. So this collection literally is implemented as a local artist. Let's open up the contract so we have it for reference. So we have a canvas, which is a structure, a picture, which is a resource, and we have a collection. So a collection takes in an array of pictures. All right. So this just, this literally maps onto what we have right here, which is a collection of pictures. These are implemented as resources because we want to ensure that there's no duplication possible. There's one picture for one sequence of pixels, one sequence of 5 by 5 pixels as created through the draw tab right here. All right. So going back to the transaction, what happens in this prepare statement? So in the prepare statement, we're focused on getting everything from the accounts that are authorizing this transaction and having those items, those objects ready and handy for what we need to execute. So we start first, since this is a print transaction, we first start by getting the printer reference, which is another resource. We can take a look at it. It's right here in the local artist contract. And what this resource does, it's kind of like a minter, but it's more semantically appropriate with what we're doing here, which is, drawing a picture and then printing that picture into the blockchain. All right. So here this printer has a print function, which takes in a width, a height, and a set of pixels. Hey, Jay. Hey guys, new to the space, excited to get started. Well, this is a great place to get started. There's no doubt about that. We're building, or rather exploring, a project that's hosted online right now at artist.flowdeveloper.com. This is an NFT minting and trading tool, and we're just exploring how it's built, maybe to get some inspiration for how you guys can build some of your own NFT projects. And right now, and this is specifically addressed to Jay if you're just joining us, right now we're exploring the transaction that prints a given picture. So let's say we have this kind of picture. We click on print. What happens next? So what happens next is this is the Cadence transaction source code, and we're borrowing a printer from the contract that is hosting these pictures. And that contract function has the method print, takes in 3 arguments, and we can see those 3 arguments exist in the transaction. Because essentially we need to pass information from outside of the blockchain to the blockchain, right? So in JavaScript, we might have a couple of numbers and a string. Well, that needs to somehow be converted and passed on to a format that Flow can understand, and we do that using. Let's go back into right here. So using this args function, we pass in those 3 arguments. We tell it how to convert it, and FCL takes care of the rest. All right, so we borrow the printer reference, and then we call it with those 3 arguments. And what that does is it checks if the symbols are what's expected. This is just making sure these are ASCII characters. No one's playing any funny business. And all right, so Jay's telling us that he started some time ago, created an ERC 1155 token, and yeah, sweet. Well, the channel that you're looking at right now is Decentology. We're a developer tools company that's working on DAppStarter, which is a great way to start creating blockchain projects. And you'll find links on decentology.com for anything further. All right, so we've established that this canvas can only accept ASCII characters. Then we take a look at that the canvas that we're printing has never been printed before. Okay. And if so, then we go ahead and create a picture using the canvas that's been provided, which is again is a string of 0s and 1s. And what does a picture look like? Well, it contains a canvas, which is a structure. And dealing with structures inside of resources is a convenience, because whenever you need to read something from a resource, it can be a hassle, especially when you're thinking about resources being part of a collection, whether it's an array or a dictionary. So wrapping a structure in a resource could be a solution for you. And so this picture resource has a canvas structure, which has a width, a height, and a string of pixels. All right. So after a picture resource has been created, we assign it to self.picture, which is defined right here, line 208. And then in the execute phase, if indeed we have created a picture, we printed it successfully, the printer was satisfied with all the requirements and so forth, we can go ahead and deposit that picture in this collection reference. Okay, so that's a long-winded route towards, or rather starting with this user interface, which is a React app. We click on print, and then this is all the stuff that happens. So I'm going to do this again. Click on print live just to demo what we discussed just now. And we'll approve this transaction. So this is going to flow through an access node, sending that cadence code and all the signatures and everything else. And then now will get back to us once the transaction is sealed. All right. So this picture was added to our collection. And we went full cycle as to how this is implemented. Do you guys want to explore some of the other functions? Let me know in the chat or Slack. Anywhere is good. I'm eager to make this into a conversation with everyone that's joining me today, coding these beautiful Flow apps. Any other functions that might be interesting to you guys? We had a bunch that are related to the marketplace. And funnily enough, that is a whole nother contract. Because when you think about contracts, they should serve one purpose. Explore script. Mayrap, can you be more specific? Which script are we exploring here? Perhaps it's one of those fetch balance or fetch collection. Just waiting for an answer. We have, we use a bunch of scripts and a bunch of transactions to implement the full set of features that are required to render this application. Oh, sweet. All right, so any, Mayrab just mentioned that any script would be good. So like I said, fetching a collection is implemented as a script as opposed to creating a collection or printing a picture, which are transactions. And like I said, when thinking about script or transaction on Flow, the distinction there is, are you changing the state of the blockchain somehow? Well, then that's probably a transaction. Well, almost certainly a transaction. Whereas if you're just reading from the blockchain and you don't need privileged access to anything, then that can be a script, an anonymous script that doesn't require any authentication to be executed. And one instance of such a script is in the fetch collection. All right, so that's line 143 for those following inside of flow.jsx, which is a context. So when we open this up, we get just some setup. Since we want to have a valid arguments list, and there's two ways that we can get an address. One is using the current address for the current account that's logged in. You'll find that to be the case in the home tab. And if we click on a specific user account and that user account is in the URL, well, then it will get the account address from the URL and render the collection using that address. So this part, this if address sequence of ifs and elses, that takes care of that distinction. And then line 160, we issue another FCL send. So you guys can see that already we're reusing a similar interface. We're calling FCL send, which takes in an array. All right, so what's an array? Well, we have some cadence code that's wrapped up in FCL.script. And we're importing the local artist, which is the contract of note for our project. And then we take in a single argument, which is the address that we're looking for the collection. So like I said, this is the address if you're using an anonymous URL. And this will take the authenticated accounts address if you're looking at the home tab. All right, so we have the address. Let's say the address is our own address. So address becomes this, and that gets sent to this get account function. All right, what does that function do? Well, like previously, it's a good place to start to go into the docs, open up cadence, language reference. And let's see, get account. So get account. maybe that's not the best route to look for it. Inside of accounts, right here, we'll find this function, get account, and it will return a public account type. What's contained in a public account? Well, we have an address, we have a balance, we have storage related values, and we have some capability related features, and this is exactly what we're going to use for querying a collection. Here you see we're getting a capability, all right? So that's part of this public account type, which is what we get, calling the get account with an account address, and it returns a capability. Now, a capability is related to access control on flow. We can explore that topic during the next flow developer hours. But think of this as just fetching a reference to something that exists with an account's storage. And in this case, I'll zoom in right here. Sure. That's thanks, Brainchild. So when we get a capability, we have to tell it what kind of type we're expecting. And the way to decipher this, this is a reference to something that conforms to this interface. Local artist.picture receiver. Let's find this interface in the contract itself. Picture receiver. Okay. So picture receiver has two functions. Has to have, if someone implements this picture receiver interface, it has to have two functions. Deposit and get canvases. And get canvases is what we're interested in right now. Okay, so what could be an implementation of get canvases? Well, collection implements this picture receiver interface. That means it has an implementation. Instead of contract, that's CDC. Line 65 is where you find it. So it is assembling an array of canvas structures, which you can find all the way up here. And then it goes over each picture and just copies in the canvas. Remember when I mentioned it's a nice pattern to wrap around a structure with a resource? This way we can assemble quickly the array of canvas information. Otherwise, we would need a whole nother type that exists just for the purpose of this script, and that's not as neat as it could be. And this is an example of how to iterate in Flow. And then return the canvases. All right. So once we get this capability, and it exists at this address, public/local artist picture receiver, we are going to borrow that capability. And if it exists, we get the capability reference, or we get a nil. In that case, if it's nil, then we issue a panic and sort of shut down the script altogether. Finally, once everything is in place, we have that picture receiver reference, which is just saying that this function is available to us. We call that get canvases function, and that returns an array of canvases. Okay, so now that's, oh, and we also feed it the arguments, which just is a single argument, and that's an address. Okay, so what do we do with that? Well, as we can see, we save this result into collection, and collection is collection contains the values that we're interested in, specifically the width, the height, and the pixels, and we just pass those along to whoever's interested. And the page that would be interested in that is the home page. All right, so we use the same flow context right here. And we fetch the collection. And we pass it on right here to this collection element component. And right here we just iterate over it and render each frame of pixels. And everything exists on Flow as the backing story. There's no database. It reads it from Flow and renders it onto our React app. Was that sufficient, Mehrab? Was that an interesting example of a script? Any questions in the chat? We have 5 minutes left for today's developer hour, and this is a good time. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. If you have any feedback, love to hear it. If you guys want to try this out, you can go to the Fast Forward week 1 and look at some of the content there. I can tell you that day 1 through day 5, we build on concepts that will lead up to you creating your own artist.flowdeveloper.com. Yeah, all right. Thanks, Mehrab, for that. Though it was a good suggestion and a great question. Anyone else? We have some minutes. Explore all the ins and outs of being a Flow developer. I'm sure you guys are starting to build your projects. So what kind of tools you're using, what kind of environments, any trouble you're running into. Where do you ask questions? Do you just use the Flow help desk? Or if you have questions, you go someplace else, Google, Stack Overflow. Would love to know that too. So Mehrab is typing. Let's just wait for him to finish up and see if we can help. Code for the previous session. That's a good one. We didn't exactly store it anywhere. And I think, yeah, so that was a sort of throwaway code, and we just did a lot of live coding there to explore some concepts. But I think going forward, that's a good point. We're going to create repositories for each one of the, or rather folders in a new repository for each one of the developer hours, so that this is not only in video format and you guys have access to whatever we end up creating during the stream. Thank you for that suggestion. I'll make sure to do that. Jay is saying, for a newbie, should I focus on cadence or solidity? Well, if this is, you did mention that you had some fun with ERC 1155, so that means you have some solidity background. I'd say cadence is friendlier if you have zero understanding of what's going on with blockchain, because you can open up things like play.onflow.org and you can start messing with these things. You can deploy these fake contracts and start sending transactions. So it's easier in that regard. It has tooling to facilitate new developers. Also, it's got a lot of lessons built in from Solidity and Ethereum over the years that have accumulated. So I would suggest Cadence. Mehrab is asking, can I use HTML ES6 instance of React.js? Not sure what's the difference. React.js supports ES6 out of the box. HTML is not something that you write when you're writing React. Maybe you could clarify that question, but yeah, things be easy for that assist. Yeah, Cadence is easier in my opinion. It has a lot of lessons learned in there. So Brainchild is asking, I think Jay is mistaking Flow blockchain with Ethereum, or am I wrong? I don't think so. Solidity and Cadence, those correspond to Ethereum and Flow, but kind of the essence of the question is whether you're going with Flow or you're going with Ethereum, if I understand correctly, of course. So Jay is saying yes. Also, some Cadence learning source you recommend. I got some background in the MERN stack. All right, well, Cadence learning resource. Well, I would strongly suggest exploring week 1 for the Fast Forward Bootcamp. We cover like step by step how the basic types for Cadence, composite types for Cadence, how to interact with Playground, how to interact with command line, how to build with FCL. Integrating those things. So those 5 days do carry a lot of information for how to get started. Brainchild is asking, can I develop Flow with Solidity? No, you can't. The only option for Flow is Cadence. Those are tightly coupled, and yeah, BZ is correct. You can't. We're approaching the end of the stream. I really appreciate everyone that was with us today. We're on this journey together. We're pioneers in a brand new ecosystem, Web3, and for this hackathon, we're working with Flow and Filecoin. There's tons of uncertainty. There's a lot of things to be built. Things can break. Things can be unclear. Some documentation can be missing. But this community is specifically designed for that purpose, so that it's easier for everyone. If you guys have questions, you guys have a source to get some answers, and that's key when you're just getting started. You don't want to get stuck. If you get stuck, go ahead and ask a question. We're here to help you, and we're all in this together. All right, so this has been fun, but for now, from me, Morgan, and the rest of the team at Decentology, I bid you farewell. Thanks for joining the stream, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye now.